Okay, today's daf is Yoma daf Chet, Yoma 8. The Gemara, in the middle of Chet Amud Aleph, Gemara says, Kohen Asorav Esapora Mazan Alav Kol Shiva, Kohen Gadol Yemakori Mazan Alav El Shlishi V'Shvi, Ma'ila B'Hakam Ifli. Rameir Savar Tuma Duchui B'Tziva. Rameir said earlier, what does Rameir say? Echad zev, mazan lav kol shiva, mikol chato shayusham, divrei meir. Rabbi Yossi omer ein mazan lav el shlishi v'shvi b'lvad. So the Gemara explains the machlokas, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi. Meir savar tuma d'chui hi b'tzibur. Rabbi Yossi savar tuma heter hi b'tzibur. Rabbi Yossi says it's a heter, it's hutra. You only have to sprinkle him the third and seventh days. And Meir says we're worried that he might be tummy any of the days, and therefore if the sprinkle on the Kohen Gadol all 7 days from the Mechatas. So the Gemara says, "V'tisprach." This makes sense. He saw Rabbi Yossi heter hi b'tzibur hazak klal lamali. If it's heter, the Gemara is assuming it's hutra. So why do you need that at all? Maybe you shouldn't need any sprinkling, not even the third and seventh day. Ela d'chul yamahani t'nai savri tuma d'chuya b'tzibur. So the Gemara concludes at this point in the Gemara that tuma is d'chuya b'tzibur according to both Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi. Now the problem is that we established in the last year, and also we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda against Rabbi Shimon that tuma is hutra hi b'tzibur or heter hi b'tzibur, and the Gemara seems to be saying at this point that even Rabbi Yossi agrees, and the Gemara in Eruvin says Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Meir the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi because Rabbi Yossi nimuko imo, he has depth to what he says. So how could it be that we're pasking here like Rabbi Yossi? We're saying Rabbi Yossi would hold tuma d'chui b'tzibur. The Gemara continues, and the Gemara says the machlokes is haka v'hakam ifligir. Meir savar armina tefila b'zman mitzvah. Rabbi Yossi savar lo armina tefila b'zman mitzvah. The Gemara says the machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi is whether you hold that tefila when you have to do a tefila, and it's a mitzvah to do it in its exact time. And therefore, by extension, we'd extend that to a hazah over here, where the person is tummy mace, and you'd be extending it to hazah, and therefore, Rabbi Meir would say tefillah b'zman is a mitzvah, and therefore you have to make sure to sprinkle him all 7 days to make sure that it's bizmana. And Yossi holds it doesn't have to be bizmana. Now the problem with this is that the connection between tefillah b'mitzvah bizmana and hazah bizmana mitzvah is that hazah we're not sure if he's tummy every day. How could it be called really hazah bizmana? It's a suffix what day it is. Tefillah b'mitzvah bizmana, you have to be told on that day. Hazah, you don't necessarily know that you have to do a hazah, you have to get sprinkled on that day. You're not sure when you're tummy. That's why you're sprinkling all 7 days according to Rabbi Meir. So it's not an exact comparison. The third question, the Gemara eventually concludes that Rabbi Yossi savar amrina tefillah mitzvah tefillah b'zman mitzvah. El dekuli amal lahani tanai amrina tefillah b'zman mitzvah. The Gemara says that can't be the machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi would agree tefillah b'zman is a mitzvah. We see from the Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos says, and the Gemara brings us over here also, and the Gemara in Shabbos explains it better, is that someone is going to the mikvah and he has the Shem Hashem written on his skin. So the Gemara in Shabbos says there's a problem that you can't go, you can't be naked and see the Shem Hashem. When you go to the mikvah, you're naked, and the Shem Hashem is revealed to the naked body, and that's a problem. So the Gemara says you can put your hand in it. The Gemara says maybe you'll forget to put your hand in it. The Gemara says maybe you can tie a reed, you can tie something to cover the Shem Hashem. So it comes to the machlokes, tefillah b'zman mitzvah or not, is Rabbi Yossi holds in the Gemara in Shabbos, tefillah b'zman mitzvah, and therefore, since it's a mitzvah, so therefore we're not worried. Even if he forgets to cover it with his hand or with a reed, we don't force him to go get a reed. And this is a mitzvah to do the tefillah b'zmana, so we don't. It's sort of hutra that he doesn't have to go after a reed. And the other mandamar will argue, the Rabbanan will argue him over there, say tefillah b'zmana la mitzvah, and therefore you have to. It's sort of dechuya, and you have to go after a reed before you go into the mikvah with the Shem Hashem uncovered. So that's the machlokes in the Gemara in Shabbos and the Gemara here. The Gemara here concludes The Rabbi Yossi, like the Gemara in Shabbos, the Rabbi Yossi holds tefillah b'zmana is a mitzvah. So the Gemara says, what's the machlokas here? Remain Rabbi Yossi. Aduchul yama lahani t'nai amrina tefillah b'zmana mitzvah. Hacha b'haka miflagi. Rabbi Meir said makshin hazala tefillah. Rabbi Yossi said lo makshin hazala tefillah. The question is whether you compare hazah to tefillah or not. Hekesh normally means they're written next to each other in the pasuk. There's no pasuk that says hazah and tefillah next to each other. So what's the Gemara really saying over here? In order to answer all these questions, I want to say that at the end of the Gemara, when the Gemara says makshinan hazal tvila, the Meir said makshinan hazal tvila, Rios said lo makshinan hazal tvila, it doesn't mean to say that it's an exact hekesh, it's an exact comparison between the two. Really, what the Gemara is saying over here is that the Meir says makshin hazal tvila, that just like by tvila, it's a bismana, it's a mitzvah, and there, since it's a bismano, it's you know the right time, so you have to do it in that time, and you don't have to go after a reed to cover the Shem Hashem. Here also, Makshin Hazal Tevila, here we're going to make sure, the Meir says you have to sprinkle on him all 7 days, the Kohen Gadol all 7 days, because of the suffix, we're machmir, and we make sure that he does it every day. We make sure that it's as much of a mitzvah as possible. It's a mitzvah as possible. And Rabbi Yossi would hold lo makshinan hazal tvila. He would hold that since over here it's different. It's a different case. Like we said before, you can't compare the two cases of tvila and hazah. Hazah, we're not sure when he became tummy or not. Tvila, we know when the tvila is. So lo makshinan hazal tvila. Tvila bismana is a mitzvah, and like Rabbi Yossi says over there that it's a heter over there. You can rely on a kula, and you don't have to go after it. You can go into the mikvah, even though you might forget, and the Shem Hashem might be uncovered. You don't have to lom hadrina. You don't have to go after the reed. We rely on the head there, and he's not makish hazal tvila. Is that because hazah is a different case? So hazah, since it's a suffix when he's really doing the hazah, whether it's actually being mitayrim or not. So since it's a suffix, so therefore he doesn't compare the cases. He says also over there that it's hutra, heter, like we said originally. That like we're going back on what we were saying before, is that now Rabbi Yossi is saying that it's a heter, like he said before, that tuma heter. Since we're not sure, so therefore we rely on just sprinkling him on the 3rd and 7th day, because it's a suffix whether you have to do it every day or the 3rd and 7th day should be okay. So instead of suffix, so therefore we rely on the kula. We don't do it all 7 days. We do it the 3rd and 7th day. It's not hutra legamre, because otherwise you wouldn't have to do sprinkling at all. But it is heter, and that's where Vila Shita say that Rabbi Yossi really holds at the end of the day, like Rabbi Yehuda, that Tuma is heter b'sibur.